Hello and welcome to this very spontaneous painting video. This will replace the weekly video just because obviously we haven't had really much chance to get a weekly video out. So this is going to cover my Leagues of Votann colour schemes, seeing as though I've had quite a lot of interest, and instead of sitting around for hours just copying and pasting, I thought I'd just throw together a quick video explaining what I did, really. Obviously we started with a white base, as you can see, and then we start, whacking on some colours, starting with moot green for the armour. I've always actually liked moot green, but never really thought of it as a primary colour to use on the armour of any particular army for some reason. Once you've got a good solid coverage of moot green, you then want to go on to Incubi Darkness for the fatigues, the material essentially. So whereas moot green only needed 2 coats to get a full coverage, I found that Incubi Darkness over the white needed 3 coats before you had a 1 solid colour. Okay, so I'm just going to take a moment to apologise for the autofocus at this point. It didn't know whether it was coming or going during the recording of this video. Once you've got the Incubi Darkness down though, it's time to move on to the small amount of trim that I actually decided to pick out, which was on around the feet and some of the raised pipe sections on the fatigues and the rims around the gauntlets. They're really like thin lines, so either like a watered down Abaddon Black or contrast Black Templar will do. For me personally, I think a contrast Black Templar has replaced Abaddon Black in many cases, particularly when it comes to doing fine line work or detailing of some description. Once the black trim's done, it's then time to tackle the metallics, or at least what metallics are actually on show, mainly the bolt weapon and the bottom half of the backpack. For this I decided to use Iron Hand Steel. This is mainly yet again because I'm going to be using streaking grime on these. The streaking grime itself is going to dull it down quite a bit. It was while painting the bolt weapon that I actually realised I'd missed both his gloves, so I quickly put the metallic down and went back and fixed that, and then got back on with doing the metallics. So yeah, after having to go back a step and then coming back and finishing off all the metallics, that meant that it was time to tackle some of the casings, which on this colour scheme is just the bolt kit, bolt weapon and a small section on the backpack really. Really enjoying working with Corvus Black at the moment. It's a lot more fun to work with and also to highlight as well. So once the casings were done, it was time to start on some of the smaller details basically, starting with the visor, which I used contrast Frost Heart, and then for the actual shells that you can see in the drum I used Nazderg Yellow. Once all the contrasts had dried, I decided to add some highlights with Thunderhawk Blue on the casing and fatigues, just as a sort of pre-highlight before doing the streaking grime. I also used the Thunderhawk Blue to weather the belt and pouches, as well as the casing and the panel on his backpack as well. So at this point it was now time to add some chipping on the armour sections. Now, as many of you know, I do sometimes go a little bit overboard and I really like using sponges. So with some Rhinox hide I just added a little bit of chipping here and there. This will be highlighted at a later date. After the initial chipping, I decided to give the metallic areas a healthy coating of Agrax Earthshade. And there you have it. That's pretty much the basics of this colour scheme. If you like it as is, then may I suggest that you maybe water down some streaking grime, put that in the recesses, and then use a 2-to-1 mix moot green grey seer to highlight the edges, as well as picking out the chipping. Because without the highlight on the chipping, it kind of looks a little bit dull and flat. So if you do want to go that one step further, streaking grime, go for it. If you've got access to it, then yeah, by all means, it's a lot of fun to mess around with, and the bright colour scheme really works well with streaking grime. Odourless thinner every day of the week, it works wonders. Just don't forget to use gloves. Oh, and of course, use a knackered brush, don't use one of your good brushes. I generally find dabbing on sideways, sometimes even just sort of rolling on. Don't brush though, because there is a possibility that you could take away your paint that's underneath. Obviously, if you are going that one step further, here's one I prepared earlier. So this has just had the streaking grime and then the odourless thinner used on it. I then varnished it because I'm then going to be using the dirty down rust paints for the bases. So with the first model, I actually did the dirty down rust and the verdigris and then varnished, and it ruined it. So I had to go over it all again. So if you're going to then go that extra step and use dirty down rust and verdigris, then make sure you varnish your miniature first and then do the rest of it. So for the paint chippings, if you're using the streaking grime, you don't need to do a mix. Just straight moot green will painted on will work well to emphasize those chips. I hope you've all enjoyed this video and that it's answered a lot of the questions you had about the colour scheme. I just want to give a big thank you to Maritzka and the Foxy DM for their encouragement to step outside my comfort zone that is just Citadel paints. As well as that, I'd like to thank our Patreons. You are absolute legends, so thank you very much for your continued support. If you want to see your name above with the rest of these heroes, then check out the link below for our channel's Patreon. And don't forget to smash the like button, hit subscribe, and we will see you next time.